sleeping after lunch, but after breakfast it was first time. Uttapam, is that what you want to do? But how many is the question? 2, 1. 1. Just give me a moment while you sort this out. That you gave. That's great. Get your attention. Okay, who's the youngest here? Who's the youngest?
Asia.
Hey, talking about girls ain't with asking for trouble. You might not leave this camp alive. Okay, how old are you?
I'm 14.
14. Who's the oldest participant here? ठीक है. Okay, thank you for the lovely introduction. Whatever was said was true. In fact, I have some more things which I will spend the next 10 minutes talking about myself, because otherwise you won't believe a word I say. Either nod your head or shake your head. It's great to be here with you. Always a wonderful time to come and speak to young people, because you're inquisitive, because you challenge thoughts, because you don't sit back and accept whatever is given, which means when we are up here sharing something, we better be sure. The first session, కొంచెం heavy ఉండొచ్చు. How many of you follow Telugu? Okay, how many of you don't follow Telugu? Don't follow at all. How many of you act like you don't follow Telugu because you want to appear posh? I keep jumping here and there like this. Hello, speak up anyway. We'll start with a small exercise. I want you to bunch up. I don't know how much time do we have? We have 1 hour for this session. Could someone just let me know when I have 10 minutes to go, so I'll start winding down. Who will do that? You will do that? Okay. So just let me know 10 minutes before my time is up, so I'll start. Okay, bunch up into groups of 3, please. Bunch up into groups of 3. Quick, just look around. Okay? Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Who wants to play God in these 3? In your group, one person is going to be God. Okay? Okay. Alright. The other person is going to be the manager. They have you all decided. All of us can't be gods. Okay, group of 3. 1 God, 1 manager. Who are the people who are left out? 3 minus 1 minus 1 is only 1. All the people who are left out?
Who's manager?
Okay, I'm going to start fresh again. Groups of some question at some point of time. Nobody? At least one of them at some point of time. Let's turn our Bibles. John 1:14. someone read that aloud for us, please?
John 1:14. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth.
Anybody here who hasn't heard this reference, never read this, or never heard at least the first part of it? The Word became flesh. Let's pray. Father, as we come into your presence, and as we study the person of Jesus Christ, we pray that you will be with each one of us, open our hearts and our minds to receive from you. Help us, Lord, to understand all our learnings, that they may strengthen us to better Christians, better people. In Jesus' name we pray. Okay, so John 8:58 says, before Abraham was born, I am. So I suddenly appeared on the 4th of December 1970. Each of you can also point out to a day when you suddenly started. So there's a point in time where you would put a pen and say on the timeline, this is when I started, this is when Santhosh started. Each of you can do the same thing. But Jesus referring himself says, before Abraham was born, I am. So if you draw a timeline, and this will go on that way, and this has come so far and will go on. There was a point in time where he actually became part of this world. But that doesn't mean Jesus was always man. Being God at some point of time, which we now refer to as 180 or 480, depending on the calendar corrections. We know there is a point in time where Christ came into the world and said, I'm going to live as a man here. Our topic for today, the Word became flesh. Just take a minute to read what J.I. Packer said. How many of you would admit that it actually is complex? First of all, you have to understand the Trinity. Then finally, when you think you're starting to have some idea of it, then you take one person of the Godhead and then say, now this also is split into two. Now there's God and man also. We'll try and understand a little bit. It's too short, but let's look at the basic rudiments and cover as much as we can. So let's start with the Word. Word became flesh. Where does your mind automatically go the minute we say Word? What are we talking about? Sorry? Bible. Sorry, but in this context, when we say Word became flesh, what other reference can we give to support this? John 1:1. Could someone tell it to us from memory or read it for us? I'm a 1:14 just started. John 1:14 cannot support itself. We take it part and say, when you say word, what are we referring to? We go back to John 1:1. Christ himself. So at the appointed time, the Word became flesh. When we say became, I know these two words, word and flesh, are very clear. Say, yeah, yes, word was Christ as God always. Flesh, he became man. But why is this became important? Seems like a very innocuous, small, little, simple word. But what do we mean by became? Changed. Leave one form and take another form totally?
Sacrifice.
What's the matter? When you say change, transform, okay. As in leave one form totally altogether, take a different form. You burn wood and then you get ashes. That's transformation. Transformation in energy. You're reading too much Stephen Hawking nowadays. We'll come back to this right at the end. I have one slide for this. But it doesn't mean that when we say the word became flesh, it doesn't mean Christ ceased being God and said, I'm going to be man for some time, then I'll come back to being God. He did not give up being God to become man. He did not give that up to take up that identity at a later point in time. He added the human element to his divine nature. And when we say flesh, what are we referring to? The English word says flesh. Well, what is the overall meaning when you say the word became flesh? What all is covered under flesh? Sorry? Human soul, emotions. Human body, emotions. What are the faculties?
Sin.
Feelings. Feels pain. Yes, so feelings. Temptations.
Sin.
So when we say it became flesh, we're talking about not just the human form, not just the human flesh, we're talking about will, emotions, feelings, human mind, everything that we are made of. We look at each one of these separately. But let's look at some people who've taken one of these two and have tended to go to extremes. How many of you know what this stands for? Never came across this? This logo, the watchtower, is used by Jehovah's Witness. Jehovah's Witness. Now Jehovah's Witnesses, they pick up all the verses in the Bible to focus as much as possible on the human nature of Christ. And hence draw their attention and everybody else's attention to God the Father, Jehovah saying, yeah, Jesus is dead, yeah, but it's okay. He's probably one step above the prophets and nothing more than that. So they're looking at the flesh part of it so much more. On the other extreme, you have these guys. That's the Christian scientists, who focus totally on the word part of it, on the divine nature of Christ, saying he just used a human body for a little while, but he was always in control as God. He just needed a human form to walk with earth. Both of them are going to either extremes. Jehovah's Witness look at the flesh more, and the Christian scientists go towards this end and focus more on the divine nature, the spirit nature of Christ as God, to play down Christ who walked this earth. So where does that leave us? Who are we that angry with him? What is our response? Okay, so that guy there is Eutychus. He lived in the 4th century. Well, what he propounded was Eutychaism, which meant to say that both natures were mixed, but not equally, which means the God part, the divine nature of Christ was far more overpowering, and the human nature really.
As Jesus heard it, he marveled and said unto them that followed, Verily I say unto you, I have not found so great faith, no among Israel.
He marveled. He was pleasantly surprised. Let's take another one, Matthew 26:38.
Then he said to them, My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me.
Sasthe Babu Nanpichindi. Can you imagine Jesus saying that? I'm so overwhelmed to the point of wishing for death. John 11:33-35.
Then when he saw her weeping, and also the Jews who came with her weeping, Jesus groaned in the spirit and troubled himself. He said, Where have you laid him? They said to him, Lord, come and see. And Jesus wept.
Groaning in the spirit was hurt, deeply hurt, just as anybody else. You would think he was above, way beyond human emotions. John 12:27.
Now my soul is troubled, and what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour. No, it was for this very reason I came to this hour.
My soul is troubled. He knew what he came for. But when the time came, there is this human part of him which felt fear, which felt anguish. I know how difficult this is going to be. John 13:21.
After he had said this, Jesus was troubled in spirit and testified, I tell you the truth, one of you is going. Sorry.
Troubled in the spirit. And finally, Hebrews 5:7. Hebrews 5:7.
But Jesus in the days of his flesh, when he had offered up prayers and supplications with strong writings and tears to him who was able to save him from death, and was heard in that who feared.
He feared. He feared. So next time you are afraid of exams, next time you are afraid of facing someone after you made a mistake, next time you are afraid of asking a question in a session like this, next time you are afraid the day before your exam results, remember it's so normal to be in that place that even Jesus felt. He was happy, he was joyful, he was troubled in the spirit, he felt anguish, he feared every human emotion possible. Christ felt it and lived through it. So we covered Christ's body, we've covered his emotions. Let's talk about Jesus' human mind. Let's look at Luke 2:52. Jesus grew in. So, if you talk to theologians or anybody who's spent a little time being a Christian, they'll all tell you, yeah, by the age of 12, they had to learn so much. So probably Jesus was also learning, reciting the Holy Scriptures and everything, because when he went to the temple, he was actually having discussions with the big guys there. But then if he was God and he gave the word, and he should have known everything by heart, right? Yeah, I know it all. Then why go to school, why study, why read, why write the Torah, why go through all this? He still was here in human form. His human mind needed to understand, needed to learn, needed to be able to do things, including probably learning carpentry from his father, because he needed to know what wood this is, how this would work, which instrument works how. Why learning the spiritual part of it? Why learning how to be a good practicing Jew? He had to grow in wisdom, stature, filled with God and man. Let's look at the second one, Mark 13:32. Now this is a tricky question, and this debate could go on and on and on, because people say that when Christ is going to come back for the second time, no one knows when it is going to be. Because Christ has said, I don't know. But then hey, he's supposed to be God, and if he is in the Father is in him, then there cannot be anything that is not known. But then, in this context, in this verse, when he's speaking as a human being, to human beings, and saying, in this form, at this hour, I do not know it. I do not know it. I am operating in the human form here right now, and there is nothing I can share with you. Jesus' human mind. Let's talk about his will then. Human will. John 6:38.
For I came down from heaven, not to do my own will, but the will of him that sent me.
Not to do my own will, but the will of the one who sent me. So he had his will. If he wanted to, he could get up and walk away from the dining table whenever he wanted to. He had his own will, he could make his own decisions. But he said, not my will, but the one who sent me. Let's look at the second verse. Matthew 26:39.
Going a little further, he fell on his face to the earth and prayed, My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will.
What do you think his will is from what you're reading? What's the situation here? He knows what's going to come. Someone's going to betray him, he has to walk across, time for the sacrifice has come. But in that verse, the second part he says, not my will but yours be done. But it clearly indicates what his will is. What does the first part of the verse say? Take away. So if I had my way, if I had to use my will, I would just put this away. I would try and avoid this. We'll figure out some other way, because I've been here in this human body and I've experienced pain and I have a good idea of what's going to come. But that is my will. But how does the word end? Not my will, but your will. So he had a human will also, which was challenged by his fears, his anguish, and the coming troubles that he foresaw. Are we convinced about the human nature of Christ? He had a body which has its needs, he had emotions that were hurt, that were troubled, that were ruffled from time to time. He had his will, he had his own mind. He had to put that to use, make his everyday decisions. Have you ever imagined Jesus work in his father's carpentry shop, and then a customer comes, "Bhaiya, ye chain kitna?" 40 rupees. Nahi 30 mein dena. What is it Jesus works? Take it for free. I am the Son of God. He probably could have been as fair as possible. But the fact is, he was here, he experienced everything that we experience as humans. Let's look at the divine nature then. Let's look at the divine nature of Jesus. Let's read Matthew 16:21, Luke 11:17, John 4:29.
From that time, Jesus began to show to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders and chief priests and the scribes, and be killed and be raised to the third day.
So he kept telling them of what was to come, what will happen in the future. Luke 11:17, any guess about that?
But knowing that God and His every kingdom divided against God, and a house divided against.
Can you just read the first part of the verse for me?
But knowing their thoughts,
But knowing their thoughts. How many of you can read somebody else's thoughts? All you men who are hoping to be married someday, be prepared. Your wife will expect you to know her thoughts. What is it? Nothing. No, there is something. Please tell me. If you don't know, I'm not going to tell you. How about that? But how often in everyday life also we wish our friends understood what our thoughts are. Our parents understood us. And our parents think that means this fellow understood what I want. But it's not possible. We probably can. There is an old Telugu movie called Devudamma. There's a song in it which goes, "Ekkado durana కూర్చున్నావు ఇక్కడి మాటల రాత్రి రాస్తున్నావు చిత్రమైన గాలిని చేస్తున్నావు తమాషా చూస్తున్నావు." What does it mean? This is man talking to God. ఎక్కడో దూరాన కూర్చున్నావు తమాషా చూస్తున్నావు. It's questioning God and saying, "You are far away. You don't know what we are going through." There's a Hindi equivalent also. I don't know the rest of the details, but the song goes, "वो ऊपर बैठे क्या जाने इंसानों पे क्या गुजरी." Easy to question. God, you don't know about my mother. You come and live with her for 1 week. You don't know how difficult the biology paper is. You don't know how difficult it is to sit through 3 sessions every day in a youth camp. You don't know how calm this uttapam is. You don't know how difficult it is not to tell a lie. You don't know how difficult it is to speak the truth all the time, even if I'm beaten up. You don't know what it is to be in the human form, having human emotions and the challenges. Unfortunately for us, this excuse will not work because He knows. Can you read that aloud for us once again, please?
For we do not have a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weaknesses, but was in all points tempted as we are, yet without sin.
We cannot say that He cannot sympathize with us because He can. Because He was here, He felt fear, He was tempted, He was troubled, He was hurt, He was whipped, beaten up, crucified, put to death. if He cannot understand our emotions, I doubt who else can. So we have a God who's been in every possible. But then we will see in the end where it leads us to and what we take home from here. The video that was played, I was told there's going to be some comedy time here, so I don't know if that was comedy or they referred to my session. But some of the stuff that was spoken of in the video will feature in this session. So let's get on with it. We have a booklet coming up with the person-to-person publications on friendships. When was Friendship Day? How many days did you wait? How many days did you wait before you cut the friendship band and threw it away? The next day? Somebody tell me, how is friendship different from other relationships? In what manner? How is friendship different from other relationships? We have the freedom to choose or delete. You can delete friends, you can't delete your father and mother. That's title for life. Their mother, their father, their brother for life. Any other differences?
Freedom to share.
Freedom to
Share.
freedom to share something with a friend or share the friend with somebody. Either way, sir. One person. What else? Anything else? How is friendship different from other relationships in our lives? Amma, what's your name? What Rebecca gave is the primary number one difference, which is you get to pick and choose. You can't pick your parents. You're already here, it's too late. You can't switch them. But friendship is something that you can pick and choose. But they don't just happen. Friendship don't just happen. You pick and choose, you go through a process, and it goes through different levels. So we spend some time understanding this, and what does this have to do with the Bible or with Christ, who is wholly human, wholly divine, and what does it have to do with His ultimate sacrifice? Let's look at Genesis 2:18. The Lord God said, so God saw the need for companionship. He said it's not good for man to be alone. He needs someone, he needs some company. So the need for companionship, which is one of the primary ingredients of friendship, goes back to God Himself figuring out it's good for someone to have friends, to have a companion. So this is just to establish that this is a biblical problem. Otherwise you won't get me speak. I have to find some biblical things. How many of you feel that way? How are friendships formed? You said we get to pick and choose who will be our friends. But how are friendships formed? form. Just think back at some of the friendships that you have, some of your friends that you made. Sorry? You think alike? Okay. Similarities? Okay. How are they formed? What leads to forming a friendship? How do you meet these people? How do you end up being friends over a period of time? Sorry? You start talking to each other. So when was the last time that you were walking on the road and stopped someone and said, hey, hi, I want to be friends with you, let's talk for some time. Starbucks is open, let's go sit there for 2 hours and waste some money and talk to each other. How does it work then?
Through someone or something.
Sorry?
Through someone or something.
Through someone or something. Okay, let's say we have a blind date.
Something like school, like someone like.
Sorry, something else?
Something like school.
School or?
Someone like mutual person.
Okay.
Within a common, we meet friends on occasions, start talking to them.
We meet friends on occasions at school or common places where we go to. Who is a very practical person? If you are looking at this, we said Facebook, we said school, we said meeting them someplace. We are referring to proximity. Just by virtue of being close to each other, proximity is being close to each other. Who are your first friends? Neighbors. Why? Because they are close. Right? Tell me, what are the chances of you making friends with somebody from Gujarat as opposed to being friends with someone who lives next door? Hello, speaker man. Approximately, just because they are close to you, they are neighbors, so you end up playing with them. Or you go to the same Sunday school, so you see them Sunday after Sunday after Sunday, sometimes even though you don't want. But just by plain virtue of being close to each other, being in sight of each other, become friends. Have you done? Just raise your hand next time you want to talk and stop. I'm fine. Just by virtue of proximity, because we are close to each other. You end up bumping into each other. For that matter, even what you said about Facebook. You have common friends, so you keep bumping into them or you keep seeing them on your friends' page all the time. So you know, it's pure proximity. You come to camp year after year after year. When I was young, when I went to children's camp, there were some people I saw only once a year. I finished this camp, I see them only next year at the camp. When you do that for 4 or 5 years, you get to be friends with them. By proximity. One way. Any other ways? What I mentioned, the second half is the encounters. You keep bumping into these people, like at Sunday school, like at camps. Encounters. Now these encounters, you meet them the first time, second camp, third camp. You meet them the first Sunday, next Sunday, the other Sunday. You meet them at one birthday party, then the other birthday party, then another wedding. You end up being friends with them. Encounter. Repeatedly encounter the person. Now, there are two ways, two types of encounters. What would they be? Sorry? Coincidence is one. Wonderful. What's the second one then? A simple virtue of one being coincidence. What's the other one? Intentional. Intentional. So how many times have some of you boys gone by to a girls' college and say, hey, I was just passing from here. So one is coincidental opportunities because you are there for some reason. Second one is when you create an opportunity, when you make an opportunity. So repeated encounters, meeting the same person over and over again, you end up being friends with that. Or the opportunities that are either self-made or presented. You happen to meet that person for some reason or the other. And then, at these opportunities, you share, someone said, who said sharing? Share. You share the same ideas, you share the same kind of thinking, and then you realize, hey, you know what, there's something in common. I think we should meet again. You'll actually say, I think we should meet again. Let's say there is a subject of interest. So let's say you're a guitarist, and then you meet another person, and then you realize he also is a musician. He plays another instrument or some such. Should we take a 2-minute break so that all of you can finish saying your hellos and talking to each other so that I can come back? And so you want to continue this relationship after you finish school, after you finish 2 years of intermediate together. You might go off to study in Sikkim and the other person might go off to study in Andaman Nicobar, but they still want to keep in touch because just getting the degree was not the end of your relationship. Because we've got more in common than that. We finished our common goal, but we share so much more, so you upgrade them to the close level. Let's look at Proverbs 27:6. We're trying to understand what we mean by close friendship. What does it mean, the wounds of a friend? First of all, why should a friend wound us? Why should a friend hurt us? And what does it mean by saying, faithful are the wounds of a friend? Correction. So, they know that telling you making a mistake will hurt you, but that's for your betterment. So there's so much love and concern and relationship that has been built from going from casual to close that you know, even if this is going to be a threat to our friendship, but I will still tell you, I will still speak the truth so that it will build you up as a person. Let's look at another one. 1824 Proverbs.
A man might have friends, but show himself friendly, and there is a friend that sticks closer than a brother.
There is a friend that sticks closer than a brother. In fact, I'll ask the guys because it works differently for us. We are different species altogether. Who are the first people that you talk to when you have a problem? Your dad? Yeah, thanks. Those of you who have a brother, do you talk to the brother first or a friend of yours? Because there are different challenges back home, right, with the brother. Sibling rivalry, too much sibling rivalry going on. So, two people can be as different as they can be. From the looks of it, so you find it very odd. How do these two people even get along together? They will actually look totally different species. But they can be close friends depending on what they share. And you and I might never understand what the basis is for their friendship. I have friends like that. But let's go one thing at a time. That's my younger brother praying. He's younger than me by 7 years. By virtue of this age difference, we've been more friends than brothers. Because by the time he was born, I was already on my own. By the time he was in his class 10, I was finishing my engineering degree and going to work. So I was more like a half parent to him. But I realized at that point of time that he's an adult and that's the way we relate today. So there is a friend and a brother. But talking about the second one, that's me and that's my friend Emmanuel. We've been friends with each other for 42 years now. So he's about a year younger to me. We met when I was 2 years old and he was 1 year old. So we've been friends for 42 years. And we've done a lot of things together. We've done a lot of things together in this past 4 decades. That was the last big thing that I pulled him to run a half marathon with me. We've done stuff to each other, we've said stuff to each other, we've hurt each other. But here we are, when something goes wrong, he's the first person I call, and I'm the first person that he calls. It just doesn't matter which part of the day or night. Because these 40 years, we've been through so much, we know that we only wish the best for each other. But on many of life issues, if you talk to both of us, we think totally different. And we differ all the time. But the point is we understand that when we differ or we correct each other, it is for our own good. And there has never been a day when we doubted if each of us wanted best for the other or not. I'm sure you have your own best friends, maybe one or more than one. So we've been through casual friends, whole lot of them, common some of them, close. The close I can in India, what other kind of friendship can we hope for? We finished close friends, best friend also. What else can we hope for? What is it? Good, close and good friend level. Absolutely. I'll just give it another name so it's easy for us to remember. We're talking about covenant. How many of you understand what the word covenant means? What kind of promise? I'm not around. Other than promise? What kind of a promise is it? Sorry? What promise? Father. Okay, so how is covenant different from promise? Promise to promise are the covenant and covenant. It's a bond and paper the last paper. 50 rupees bond paper.
More like an agreement.
More like an agreement. Now you make me sound very commercial. I do this for you, you do this for me. Which is partly true. But what's the true nature of a covenant? It's like a pact. What kind of a pact?
Anything happens to you, I'm there.
Anything happens to you, I'm there. So, is it saying I'm there only when something happens to you?
Anytime.
Hey, close friendship also is like that. Anything happens to you, I'm there.
I will never let anything happen to you.
I will?
Never let anything happen to you.
Superman. Now you're sounding like Spider-Man, Superman, fish. I can manage everything, I'll take care of everything. But the true nature of covenant is this. While it is a fact, while it is an agreement, the nature is that in this agreement, in this understanding, in this fact, even if you don't do what you are supposed to do, I will continue doing what I said I will. Normal agreement settlement, you give me 100 rupees, I'll give you 2 cans of Coke. Right? You help me in maths exam, I'll help you in biology. You take me on your bike, I buy samosa. There's always some give and take, even if you make a promise. But the nature of covenant is, in this agreement, in whatever we said we will do for each other, be there for each other, if for some reason at some point of time, you don't do your part, I will still continue doing my part. And isn't that how God's relationship with us is? Every time we say we will do this and we slip, God continues to do what He said. He said, I'm going to love you and I'm here. Where, however far you go away, the minute you turn around, I'm right here. Not Richard Hart's right here waiting for you. This is God saying, whether you do your part or not, I am going to continue protecting you, providing for you. So, if you bring that down to human relationships, the closest that comes to, let's look at a Bible verse for that. Proverbs 27:5.
Better is open rebuke than love.
Better is open rebuke than. Let's look at James 5:16.
Confess your faults.
Confess to one another and pray for one another. One final verse. Let's look at Ephesians 4:15. But speaking in love. So you rebuke openly, but you speak it in love. You do it as softly as you can. And you also confess your faults, not just speaking on each other, but you come up by yourself and say, I made this mistake, I went wrong here. And you have so much trust in the relationship that you know, however bad this is, that the relationship will continue. So what's the best example you have for this? What's the best example you have for a covenant relationship? Jesus. So, marriage. How many of you agree marriage? The closest it comes to covenant relationship. Because when we say covenant relationship, we say absolute transparency. You share your opinions, your feelings, your fears, your mistake, everything out in the open, because you know that I am committed to this relationship and you are committed, so it doesn't matter. But you see the brightest spots, North America, South America, Europe, India, here Australia and New Zealand. Southeast Asia also. So, who's with me on Facebook? You're not? Oh, thank God. So my connection with you is here. Do you see that? The numbers just going on. These are the number of relationships. Which level do all these fall under? Sorry? Most of them casual. Okay, how many of you have more than 1,000 friends on Facebook? How many of you know all their names? Why are they all your friends? I got 4,536 friends. Some of them people I don't even recognize, some of them have doggy faces and cat faces put up in their profile pictures. But you keep getting friend requests, all friend requests. I think my number is some 1,600 or something right now. But I keep getting some kind of odd requests all the time. People keep adding. Why? Because the more number of friends I have, the better I feel about myself, even if I don't know who they are. But is that what true friendship is all about? Are they these the people that you will call in the middle of the night if you need something? So just quickly give me the levels again. Is there anything else beyond this? Close means covenant here, custom means covenant. Guess what? But is there anything else beyond covenant? What do you mean Christ like? How is it different then? I look at covenant relationship, and he's doing his part of the relationship even if we are not. So what else is there to a Christ-like relationship? Let's read John 15:12 to 15. Slowly.
My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than no one that will lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my servants, You are my friends if you do what I command. I do not call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends. For everything that I have learned from my Father, I have given you.
I don't call you servants anymore, but I call you friends. No greater love hath a man for his friends than to lay down his own life. Christ spoke those words, but in time he also did it and he showed it. Christ died. He said, I have called you friends, and the greatest thing one can do for his friends is to lay down his life. He's laid down his life for you. How many of you have Jesus as your friend? Not on Facebook, general market. That's not a doubt. How many of you are willing to die for him today? Some of them want to take second guess to come where they but they have I Okay, I appreciate it. If it comes down to a situation where you have to give up your life for Christ, like many of our brothers and sisters are doing right now as we speak across the Middle East and the African continent. Is there another way of interpreting this, of saying giving your life for the sake of your friendship? The general understanding is die. Well, you want to kill, I want to give up my friend. When I was in college, one of my friends got into trouble with the police. He came to see me. He wanted some money. I gave him. He left. 1 hour, not even 1 hour, half an hour, the police came. Is this your friend? I said, yes. Where is he? He said he took money from me. Did he say where he is going? Yes, to the hair cutting salon. Where is it? Come, I'll show you. Why? Because cops. I don't want to get into trouble. Well, let's say here we are saying, I'm going to give my life for Christ. You want to die for him? I'll die for him. But is there another way of interpreting that? Is there another way of giving up our life? Let me give you the example of Fritz Christ Love. Now, Fritz is from Austria and a very renowned violinist.